What's up, nerds? Sparkle is about to release in Honkai Star Rail, so let's take a look at how to build this character, because as far as I'm concerned, there's really only one way to do it, and she's gonna be a powerhouse support, so let's make sure that we do it right. First, we'll be taking a look at the 4-piece relics, then the planar relics, then main stats and substats, followed by light cones, and then some team building at the end. As far as the relics are concerned, I highly recommend the Messenger Hackerspace set. I recommend using the 4-piece bonus, so this is the El Primo #1 set in my opinion. The 2-piece bonus increases the speed of the wearer by 6%, and the 4-piece bonus when the wearer uses their ultimate on an ally. Speed for all allies increases by 12% for one turn. This effect cannot be stacked. Hanabi, aka Sparkle, just so happens to target all of your allies with your ultimate, so this does work for her, and this is my, like I said, #1 set. This is the one that I would be trying to use on her. I'm sure many of you have some decent substats on this set by now because this set's been out for a while, and it is typically one of the best, if not the best, support set. However, substats. So some of you have probably been around since the game's beginning and might have a potentially really good Wild Wheat set. The 4-piece bonus, the wearer's speed increases by 6%, and the basic attack damage increases by 10%. You also get that 12% attack increase from the 2-piece bonus. Now, I don't really think you should be building Hanabi for damage, although if you put some crit rate on your Hanabi, whenever she does use her basic attack, if she's able to crit, she can deal some decent damage on her own, but that's not really what she's for. So the only reason why I would use this set is only go for the 4-piece bonus, and only if you have like incredible substats that make this a viable set for you. Otherwise, I'd probably just be farming out this messenger set if I was you. This is the best potential set to use on her, my opinion. If you are building her for some damage, the quantum set does exist. I'm not going to say any more than that because I don't think that's what you should be doing. I think you should be focusing on the Messenger Hackerspace, right? You also have the win set, 4-piece bonus after the wearer uses their ultimate. Their action is advanced forward by 25%. This is a pretty darn good bonus. However, it only goes to her. I would like if you guys consider the Messenger Hackerspace because this gives the bonus to your entire team, and I think there's more value in that. So with the planar ornaments, you do have some options. The way I see it is there are 3 main options, so I'm going to go over those right now. Of course, we have Broken Keel. The 2-piece increases the wearer's effect resistance by 10%. When the wearer's effect resistance is at 30% or higher, all allies' crit damage increases by 10%. So this is really, really great for your main DPS as long as they want to have crit damage on them. And this also actually helps Sparkle because she scales with crit damage. So this would be a very interesting situation where it not only helps her main DPS, but it helps her too. But just be aware, it only works if that character has 30% effect resistance or higher. Now, this 10% that you get from the set works really nicely because this gets you 1/3 of the way there. So Broken Keel, a very good set for Sparkle. However, many people want to keep her ultimate up as active as possible. So I'm sure a lot of players are going to want to consider the new Penacony set, especially if you are running a mono quantum team, because the 2-piece increases the wearer's energy regeneration rate by 5%, and it increases the damage by 10% for all allies that are of the same type as the wearer. So this would boost the damage of every single character on a mono quantum team. This Penacony set is very, very good for a mono quantum team, and this is the set that I would recommend if you're in that scenario, unless you have a super broken Keel set and you're really leaning behind one main DPS, right? So keep that in mind. You also, of course, have Sprightly. It's very similar to Penacony. It increases the wearer's energy regeneration rate by 5%, the exact same effect. But the second part is different. When the wearer's speed reaches 128 or higher, the wearer's action is advanced forward by 40% immediately upon entering battle. Now, with Sparkle, Your hope is that she's already the fastest member of your team, so this might not necessarily matter, but you might have really, really cracked substats on your sprightly set, which might make this the viable option that you might want to choose. Substats, substats, substats. Substats are sometimes far, far better than the effect bonus of a combination set, so keep that in mind. I really like Broken Keel. I really like the Penacony set, but don't forget Sprightly is a great option as well. Now let's take a look at some main stats and then some substats after that. I think there's only one type of body piece you should be looking at, and that is a crit damage body piece. This is the piece you need in order to make her function properly. She needs crit damage. She scales off of crit damage, so crit damage body. And for the boots, again, I think there's only one type of boot you should be looking at, and that is a speed boot. She wants to go really, really fast to keep up the skill points, to keep up the buffs, and to get her ultimate up faster. The faster she is, the better. So speed boot, and that's the only way to go in my opinion. Now, as far as the Link Rope and the Planar Sphere are concerned, these are survivability slots in my opinion. I'd go for either HP or defense. Whichever one, in my opinion, you have better substats on. Because the two main stats you need to be looking at with Hanabi, aka Sparkle, are crit damage and speed. Those are what I'd be looking at, and then everything else should pretty much be survivability, unless you want to slap a little crit rate on her so that her basic attack works well, but you're probably not going to care about that because she's a support, not a damage dealer. So I would look at the substats more importantly on your Planar Sphere and Link Rope and go with whatever is better there. In fact, if you have a piece that isn't necessarily for survivability, but it has a ton of speed and a ton of crit damage, that might actually be a better piece to use on her than, let's say, an HP or defense piece. I'm just talking about an ideal scenario. If you have a really good HP or defense piece with speed and crit, that's the one to use, in my opinion. I pretty much just went over this, but for the substats, you want to be trying to roll into crit damage and speed. Those are the two most important stats. Everything else can basically go into survivability, but don't try to use a relic piece just because it has, crit and speed and HP or defense. Mostly focus in on the crit damage and the speed. As long as your Link Rope and your Planar Sphere, if both of them have either HP or defense or one or the other, then the substats don't really matter too much. The thing that matters the most is crit damage and speed on this character. Hyper focus on those two things. Now, regarding light cones, and this is an important subject matter for Sparkle. If you have Sparkle Signature Light Cone, obviously run that. That's your best cone, and it's not even close, but not everybody has that available to them. So if you have Ron May's light cone available and you're not running it currently on your Ron May, then this is a very good light cone for Sparkle in my personal opinion. I really like this cone. However, many of you are going to run this on your Ron May at the same time. So you can't really have the two cones for two different characters, right? So let's move on past that and take a look at some other light cone options we have. Let's address Bronya's light cone as well as past and future, because there's some potential issues with this light cone. Let's read it. When the wearer uses their skill, the next ally taking action except the wearer deals 32% increased damage for one turn. The reason why there's an issue with this is because when you use Sparkle's skill, let's just say on your main DPS, right? You're going to want that main DPS to be the next character to take action, but they might not be unless you have an ult stacked up and ready to go. Then it will work, but most of the time you're going to have your main DPS wanting to use their skill. But Sparkle does not advance forward your main DPS 100% forward. So if some other character ends up taking action, they're going to be the character that gets this buff. And that's not very good. So there's a little bit of an issue with past and future because of that. Depending on your team composition, speed, all these different things going on in combat, it is not very likely that your main DPS will be the one to take action. So keep that in mind. There's the same problem going on with Bronya's signature light cone, because when the wearer uses their skill, the next ally taking action except the wearer deals 30% more damage for one turn. That's only the bottom half of this cone. The top half of this cone is actually pretty good for Sparkle, but it doesn't necessarily synergize with her as well as we want, because this bottom half of this light cone, it has a lot of value for the cone. That's where a lot of the value for this cone is made, and it has the exact same issue as Past and Future, where unfortunately your DPS probably won't be the character that ends up going right after Hanabi uses her skill. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other options that we have here, such as Dreamville Adventure. This is the new Penacony light cone, and it does happen to work pretty darn well on Sparkle. After the wearer uses a certain type of ability, such as basic attack, skill, or ultimate, all allies gain Childishness, which increases allies' damage for the same type of ability as used by the wearer by 20%. Childishness only takes effect for the most recent type of ability the wearer used and cannot be stacked. So if Hanabi, aka Sparkle, uses her skill, that means that the next characters that go in line will have a buff to their skill. If Hanabi, aka Sparkle, uses her ultimate, same thing will happen. They'll get a 20% damage bonus for that ability, which is pretty darn good, because this means that it can change from your skill to your ultimate, and a lot of DPS characters' ults are their most powerful ability. A 20% damage bonus to the ult that stacked on top of everything else you have going on is actually really darn good. The greatest part about Dreamville Adventure is not just this bonus, it's a part of the Forgotten Hull shop. So every single player can take this to Super Imposition 5 very easily. This is a very good cone for Hanabi, and it's a great free-to-play option as well as pay-to-win option. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other options as well, like Planetary Rendezvous. This is the mono-quantum option that many players will be potentially able to use, because after the wearer is entering battle, if an ally deals the same damage type as the wearer, damage dealt increases by 24%. So that means that if you have a mono-quantum team, this will buff those characters with a nice 24% damage bonus. So this is clearly the mono-quantum cone. This is the one that you'd want to ideally use. At Super Imposition 5, that's when it really gets to crack off. So just keep that in mind. If you happen to have an S5 Planetary Rendezvous, this is the mono-quantum Dream Team cone, in my opinion, unless you're running something else, like potentially using Dance Dance Dance. This is one of the best cones in the entire game, because when the wearer uses their ultimate, all allies' actions are advanced forward by 24%. This is really darn good. Now, you might recognize this advanced forward, wording, and some effects don't stack with this, such as the 4-piece Hackerspace does not stack with this, for example, but the 24%, I believe, does override, so this would be the effect that takes place. So again, Dance Dance Dance, especially at S5, super duper amazing cone. I love this cone. Everybody's probably got one at S5, or at least at a decent, or at least one, right? So this is definitely a really good option. Love Dance Dance Dance. Of course, you have Memories of the Past, some break effect, and some energy regen. You have Meshing Cogs. Everybody should have an S5 Meshing Cogs. Same thing as Memories of the Past, just doesn't have the break effect. And I really, really like both of those cones for her, because the energy to keep up her ultimate is incredibly valuable. Obviously, if you want some good, reliable damage, Dreamville Adventure is actually a very good option if you're running Mono Quantum, Planetary Rendezvous. If you want that action advance forward from Dance Dance Dance, there you go. That's a really good option as well. And Meditation, unfortunately, just not as good as some of the other cones, unless maybe you're trying to do some, I don't know, like zero cycling, but even then, you probably want Dance 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 instead, right? That's what I'd probably be using. As far as character synergy and team building is concerned, I'll probably make a separate video that is dedicated to that subject. However, you have some obvious choices with Dan Hong and Bibitur Lune, QQ, Sela, Mono Quantum teams, but don't feel deadlocked behind a specific team type. Sparkle is a powerhouse of a character, and she can really benefit any DPS character that wants to focus in on crit damage. That's what Sparkle does. And the other really great thing about Sparkle is despite her skill mostly focusing in on one character, one DPS that she's buffing, she has other effects that buff literally the entire team. So, not quite like a Ruan Mei, where every single effect goes to the whole team, but she can actually run really well on even a dual DPS team. Because yes, she will make one character slightly stronger than the other DPS, but her other abilities, her other passives, will be very powerful too. Consider Ruan Mei, Sparkle, and then two other DPS characters on a zero sustain, super sweaty team that doesn't run a healer or a tank. She would actually be very, very good on that type of team, allowing your main DPS characters, the two of them, to be able to basically spam their skills every single turn. This would be a very, very strong team, and I think that Sparkle and Ruan Mei will be the two best characters likely for dual DPS zero sustain team comps. At least that's just my prediction right now. We'll have to do some in real life testing to find out more about that. If you found any of this helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. I'll be making plenty of other Sparkle videos and other Honkai Star Rail videos in the coming days. We might be getting another companion mission, so there might be some more lore to cover as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.